welcome everybody. Thanks for being here today. We're broadcasting live from Park City, Utah, where I am. I can't seem to get away from Park City. We have a little bit of snow on the ground here. And then Steve, Jay, John, and Thomas are in California in various places. So welcome. Thank you for being here. A little housekeeping. As you all know, we can't hear or see you, but we certainly welcome your input and questions in the chat box or the Q&A, and we encourage you to post them as you think of them. We have a lot of people coming on today. We'll get to as many answers to your questions as we can. If during the presentation you feel as if there's other people in your community or network that would benefit from knowing more, we're going to be sure to put you in direct contact with the folks that are presenting. And please feel free to contact them directly when they reach out to you, and vice versa. Also, for the record, we're recording this and we're going to post it to the Family Office Insights YouTube channel. So in the event that somebody that you know wanted to review it before, for example, contacting the folks here, then they're welcome to do that as well. Take a day or two. I want to welcome also many of the people that are coming on today are a result of Jay kindly inviting some of their community on the WeFunder, right?
That's right.
And
thanks
so
for coming, guys.
Yeah, and just so you know, Family Office Insights does one thing, and we're a nice, safe place for family offices to review deal flow. And being that you are now registered automatically, we will welcome you going forward. And thank you, Jay, for inviting all your friends. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to Stephen. And please feel free again to ask any questions as we go along here. Welcome, everybody.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. Just wanted to give a quick little introduction on who we are, just in case. I know a lot of our WeFunder crowd already knows who we are. They see us almost every week on our weekly video cast. And hi, everybody. We're really glad to see you here. Well, know that you're here. I see a number says 27 participants. But for those who don't know us, my name is Stephen Walworth, and this is Jason Brents with the glasses on, well, the dark-rimmed glasses, and John Lee.
Hey, guys.
The Godfather down in the corner there. Well, it is on your screen. So a little background. I'm a father of 4 kids, live in California, 45 years old, lived in China a number of years. I speak a couple languages, been in the film and television industry for about 10 years, have DP'd major motion picture, PBS national television show, pioneered drone cinematography back before drones were even a thing. There's some articles and some magazines about being the first to fly cinema cameras on big electric RC helicopter rigs. John, I'll let you introduce yourself, John. I don't want to introduce each one of you guys. Give us a little background, John.
Okay, I surf. Therefore I am. No, I've been in the motion picture industry for about 35 years, so a long time, and been doing this, and it's been awesome to connect up with Jason and Stephen. We've been now developing and acquiring rights to motion pictures since 2018, so about 3 years, and we're having a great time. We'd love to have you join us. You'll learn more about us as we go in this presentation for sure.
And I'm Jay, and I am newer to the industry than my partners, but really happy to be working with both of them. It's amazing. The strengths that I bring to the table, like Stephen said, I also lived in China for some time. And as an entrepreneur, made a lot of friends over there in the film industry, and also I have some strengths in story. I've spent a lot of time my whole life really digging deep into lots of different cultures, lots of different interests of mine, but found some really good stories that a couple of them are on our slate, and there's more to come. So this is pretty fun. 30 people.
30 people. Awesome. So if it's okay with everybody else, I'll get started kind of explaining who we are, and what our business model. and just all the details. This is a lot to comprehend in how we do business. Go ahead, Jay.
Ethan, were we going to show the video first or
Oh,
after?
sorry, I totally forgot that. My bad. So before we get started, we're just going to show you our video that is currently on WeFunder. It's kind of our promo video, just to kind of just the beginning of the outline of who we are. Go ahead, Jay.
Okay, let me hide this thing.
Yeah, I can see the video on the screen. So
okay, here we go.
How would you like to have been an investor in the first movie of the Divergent franchise, or The Hunger Games? It's one thing to be a fan. It's a whole other level to be an investor in a major motion picture franchise. If you haven't already heard about the new young adult novel called Calculated, you will. Long before Wise Wolf Publishing discovered this powerhouse epic novel, the producers at ONEDOOR Studios jumped at the opportunity to get the film rights. Divergent meets a present-day Count of Monte Cristo, set in Seattle and Shanghai, featuring a teen prodigy who was kidnapped and forced to use her nearly supernatural mathematical gift to shore up a criminal empire. Jo Rivers must escape and solve the most complex calculations she's ever faced before her nemesis vanishes and the world economy collapses.
my name is Stephen Walworth, and in the past 10 years, my work as a cinematographer has been seen all over the world. Aerial cinematography for Fox Sports, National Geographic Channel, a PBS docuseries watched by millions. I've DP'd one feature film and sold my footage to hundreds of companies for national commercials and TV shows. Our co-managing partner has over 30 years experience doing business in Hollywood. He's provided development planning and execution in all aspects for dozens of motion pictures. These are films you've seen before: Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, Terminator, The Four Feathers, The Nutty Professor. He's done work for Disney, Sony, Paramount, Universal, NBC, HBO, and a host of other global distribution companies.
And that's why I'm here, because I want to make sure this film reaches all the markets. This is a big story. It's going to become a big motion picture.
There's never been a better time than now to become an investor in global film. For $100, you can get in on the ground floor of what could be the next big young adult film franchise. Today, when you're done looking at our offering, check out our update section where you can get to know the team behind Calculated. We have interviews with the author of Calculated, the publisher, actors, and videos about our business plan to keep our investors informed. Thanks for joining us, and welcome to our team.
All right, great. Thanks so much, Jay. So in case those who are not familiar with WeFunder, that's where we've been raising most of our funding, and the minimum investment on that platform is $100, which is why that's listed there. And to date, we started in January or late December last year, 10 months ago, and we've raised $1.65 million of a $2 million development budget. And this isn't our only project, because that's almost completely funded. So we actually have 8 other projects besides that. So let's dive into a little bit of how we work. As far as we can tell, as far as ONEDOOR Studios, we can tell, we are really the first company to be offering investments through crowdfunding into a major studio release global motion picture. Our business model is used by some of the most successful independent producers that are supplying films to the major studios. And one example is like Playtone, Tom Hanks's production company. He's independent, but yet he provides films to the studios. So what differentiates these type of companies is they fully develop script, set up distribution contracts, brand tie-ins, and secure completion bonds and bank financing for the production costs before the film is ever shot. But our company's additional edge is that the public can be involved from the start. What that does is it begins preloading of the film's fan base. And the kicker for our investors is that with our model, they're actually paid back their initial investment plus a percentage before the film is even shot. Well, you're asking, how in the world can we do that? The reason we can do that is because the production budget that we get from the bank, there's a line item that comes from the production budget that pays back our investors 110% of their initial investment before the film is ever shot. So it mitigates investor risk and carefully calculates every step of the filmmaking process, from the writing all the way up to distribution. Now, this is a huge differentiation between how we approach filmmaking and the majority of other independent filmmakers. Most indie filmmakers' model is to get production funds from investors. They get 1 or 2 semi-famous talent and then make the film, usually from an underbaked story and a limited budget. And then after it's all through, final editing, the movie's done, they start to shop around film festivals or anyone who will watch it for someone to buy it. And the buyers, knowing that the money's already spent, the investors are kind of desperate to get their money back. They might lowball the producers, and these type of films rarely ever make any money back or any money at all. So we start by opening up the development phase to investors. There's a differentiation between development and production. So the development phase is a $2 million phase, which is a $2 million investor raise. During this phase, we do a few key things. About $500,000. So you see between month 1 and month 18 is the development phase. It's kind of a moving target. Between 18 and 24 months is the development phase. We start by opening it up to investors. About $500,000 is set aside for scripting the film. We engage an A-level script writer, somebody who has done a major motion picture or TV series or both, someone who the studios would recognize as a writer of successful films. And another roughly $300,000 to $500,000 is set aside to engage an A-level director, and about this roughly the same amount for a main talent attachment. And the rest of the $2 million is for overhead during that phase. So all these numbers are kind of a floating number because it depends on the final contract with the writer, the director, to get the exact number, but it's an estimated $2 million for this entire process. And so this development phase is where we fully bake the script. We have it analyzed many times by industry experts for its audience appeal to make sure the story really is going to appeal to the global audience. This is a step that most indie filmmakers completely skip. So what happens at the end of the development phase? I'm going to tell you in just a second, but I'll preface it with 2 questions that you're probably already asking. How and when are investors paid back? And I actually already covered the other question earlier, saying this Calculated isn't our only project right now. We actually have 8 other projects. And so in case you're thinking, well, there's nothing else to invest in, you guys are already almost done. We actually do have other projects. So, oh, sorry, give me 1 second here. My screen keeps going nuts here on my computer, and 2 seconds.
Yeah, take your time.
Okay.
So,
go
if you
ahead.
guys don't mind, that is so important because the typical waterfall for film finance for an old guy like me that is traditional, understands balance sheets and income statements, just was confounding. So what you're doing is super cool. And I think it warrants just a little bit more further explanation of how you actually be able to pull it off.
Yep. So the first question is how and when are investors paid back? So we have a two tranche return. At the end of the development phase, we approach a production partner. At the beginning of movies, you see like all these lists of production companies that had a part in making the movie. Those are various production partners involved in the film. We also secure distribution contracts in the 9 major territories globally. We secure brand tie-ins, production incentives from the localities where we're filming, and a completion bond. And all of this together acts as collateral for bank financing for the production costs. And a bank like Chase Bank, or which has an entertainment department, or a bank like East West Bank, which by the way has already approached us to say, hey, look to us when it's time for your bank financing. So the bank will provide us with the production loan of the production cost. In the case of Calculated, it's a roughly $50 million budget. And within that production budget given to the bank, there's a $2.1 million line item, which pays the investors back plus 10% before the film is even shot. So this is how we mitigate our investors' risk. So they're receiving their initial investment back isn't dependent on the success of the film. It's just dependent on us getting production funding. So if the film profits, then they get a share in that as well. That's in the second tranche return. The investors are going to share in 50% of the net profits of Calculated Development. Now, Calculated Development is owned, ONEDOOR Studios owns half of Calculated Development. So mathematically, that works out to the $2 million investor shares in 25% of the net profits of the film. And this profit sharing starts roughly 3 to 4 months, depending on how soon the waterfall starts to flow in after the distribution. John can give more details on that one later. This is where the cynic always says, yeah, they share in the net profits doing Hollywood accounting, which usually ends up being nothing. We've heard that so many times. This is the major difference between the way we do business and what the cynic is talking about. So we're not financed. This is the major difference. We are not financed by the studio. We're financed by the bank. We strike our deals direct with the distributors. And we have a collection agent in Vintage House, which is based in the Netherlands. And they do the collect for us. And so the collection of the finances for us. So there is no studio burden. When the studio funds your film production, there's a legal but very abusive line in the contracts, which if it goes unnoticed, you'll end up signing away your potential profits. And this is why people often refer to Hollywood accounting. When working with studios, they may follow the letter of the law, but they rob you blind in the contract. But we don't enter those contracts because we're not getting our production budget from them. We just have distribution deals with them. So we remain in control of the project. I hope that's clear. So knowing that the production budget of this first film is roughly $50 million, you also might be asking, well, how can we be confident that the income of this film will even be as much as this, given, giving me any kind of return at all? That's where our comprehensive greenlighting process comes in. So before we even say, yes, this is a project we want to do as a company, we do a very detailed greenlighting process. And we want to know if the profit to cost ratio will at least hit 2 to 1. For every dollar we spend on the film or every dollar spent in production, we can at least make $2 back. If our calculations say it's not going to be 2 to 1, we don't even begin the project. And thankfully for Calculated, the calculations have far exceeded the 2 to 1. And that's because the story Calculated has such mass appeal. Even though it's a YA or young adult novel series, the fans of it, we've discovered, range from early teens all the way up into 70-year-olds. Absolutely love this story. The story just speaks to so many people. Additionally, there's no inappropriate violence or sexual content in this. Our author, Nova McBee, was very clear about this. She wants the story to be entertaining for the sake of being a good story, not because there's all this nasty stuff that so many people put into films. Okay, so next, some people have objected that, this is One Door Studios' flagship project. And the name One Door Studios hasn't produced any motion pictures yet. And this does seem like a valid objection. And in fact, it's an objection I had before buying into this company. But when I looked at the individual experience of each one of us, the team members, the history of success in taking businesses from inception to acquisition, or I look at the deals John Lee has brokered, for example, acquiring the film rights and negotiating with Jerry Lewis for The Nutty Professor, or the relationships between he and the entertainment branch at Chase Bank, as well as the fact that his business model is taught in nearly every film school in the nation. I don't know, Jay, you have that book, the slide of that book. This is a book that John Lee wrote, The Business Producer's Handbook. Is used in most film schools around the country and many international ones.
Actually, yeah.
Yeah. So, So the business plan, John wrote the book on it. After looking at all that, additionally, we also own the film rights to this YA series that has been a bestseller on Amazon several times. But married to this, all this business stuff is the vision of the company. I mentioned before, each one of us is a father. John takes the cake because he's a father of 6 kids. Jason comes in second, father of 5 kids, and I'm a father of 4 kids, all under the age of 14. So why is that important? We know that generosity is important. And we decided early on that we were going to give 25% of our own profits as a company after investors are paid. 25% was going to go to combat child trafficking and exploitation, since we're all fathers. So we've partnered with an organization called NCOSE, or the National Center on Sexual Exploitation. When they're on the forefront of combating child trafficking and the porn industry. NCOSE will end up distributing this 25% in 3 areas: prevention of trafficking, rescue of those who've been trafficked, and rehabilitation of those who've been trafficked. So that's our vision. This is not about simply making successful films to make us rich and famous. It's about doing good in the world on the largest scale possible. So many of these organizations get their funding through bake sales, Facebook fundraisers, raising money tens of dollars at a time. I know this because I did the fundraising video for one of these organizations that rescues kids, and they literally have pickleball tournaments and bake sales to raise their money from an army of people. And so we thought, what if One Door Studios could become the largest single donor of any of these organizations that they've ever had? So that's our vision. That's a little bit of an overview of our business model, and I hope I've made things clear for you. And John, Jay, if there's anything you want to add before we open up to questions, feel free to hop in.
Yeah, I think a couple of things. Thanks, Stephen. That was that was really a good overview. I think the most important thing, and maybe we should have started with that, is the story itself and why calculated. And we did do a thorough green light on this, and we vetted things out very with high science scrutiny relative to their capacity to earn money. But we start out with finding a story like the one we did here, which we negotiated on and competed for because it is such a high profile and strong book. But the story itself is of a young woman who is a math prodigy, and you kind of saw this in the video at the beginning. But this the two books are published at this point. There are two more novels that are in the process of being published that will come out first of next year and just a little bit later. And it's just a really fun, rollicking story that's not only highly entertaining, but it also has something to say. It's and that for us is a crucial part of the ingredient of what it takes to get us to invest in the green lighting process and see what the earnings to cost ratio of a project might be, which is finding out what its budget might be and then looking at how much our share of the profits might be. And that's where our investors sit is in our share of that. It needs to be at least 2 to 1 in order to catch our interest. So the first thing, though, is that this is just a really extraordinary story. And I noticed a couple of people who have said that they've read the books. At least one comment has come across our bow now, how much they like them. But this is one of the biggest reasons that people invest in us. The business, the deal itself and the terms of the deal, very attractive. But I think for most people, if the story wasn't something that really moved them, they wouldn't be as interested. So I think the majority of our investors are that way. And Steve mentioned that we're kind of ahead on our fundraising. When we started, our objective was to raise about, and this is our first time in crowdfunding. Never done this before. And Jason heads up this end of it. That we had an objective of raising about 100,000 a month. So 2 million would take us 20 months, basically. And now we're about 10 months into this, and we've raised about, where are we at? 80%?
1.65.
Yeah, we've raised most of the capital. So we're way ahead of what our projections were. And a lot of it has to do with the story, as well as the experience of the crew and the deal terms as well. Having, as Stephen mentioned, there hasn't been, as far as we know, an opportunity for a common person to invest in a studio released motion picture. There's been the big packages that's come out from Disney, like Hollywood Partners, but it takes, these are 6-figure and 7-figure investors. But for smaller investors, we have a couple of 6-figure investors in us as well. But this is a great opportunity. And where could you go in a motion picture investment to recover your money plus 10% before the picture goes into production? Just a note on that too, Stephen. There's a line item in the budget, but we spend about, of the $2 million, we spend about $1.8 million in production costs. So we spend about $500,000 on the script. We retain about a $3 to $5 million producer, and to retain them, we have to pay 10% of that. So that's $300,000 to $500,000. We get the cast too, same kind of way, 10% of their fee, which might be 7 figures. So most of the money, most of that $1.8 million is for talent and production expenses. So since we've advanced these production expenses, it's paid back out of the production budget, which is great. In addition to about a 15% development fee for the work we've done. So that's more than enough to recover our investors. When we were structuring what this investment might look like, we said, oh, we should do that. That drives people crazy. They'll get their money back before it goes into production. And then we give them a nice piece of the profits as well, of the ongoing picture. And that makes for a pretty sweet package.
John, one of my favorite things about our business model is if you could just comment briefly before we jump into the Q&A. This 1.2 million, the attachment of the director and actors, when do we actually need that money to be used? It stays in our account for a while, right?
Yeah, it does. It takes, I think Stephen mentioned this, it takes 17 to 22 months to write the script, which might seem like a long time. But on studio level projects, in order to get it there where and you know what it's like when you go see a movie, and sometimes we go to our living room to see them now, but whether it's in a theater or not, it's just such an overwhelming story because the script is so extraordinary. It's so excellent. It's the term in the industry is that it's fully baked. And that takes multiple writers often. There'll be a great writer maybe that starts with it and they put everything in it they can, but it isn't quite where it needs to be. And another writer will come in and another writer. Very common where there are 3 or 4 or 5 writers. But it takes time and it isn't done until it's done. The most successful production company out there is Pixar, which used to be independent before Disney purchased them. But their success is primarily due to that. They're just so committed to stories that are just so mature and packed with entertainment and have something to say, that people are just thoroughly entertained, and they walk away feeling like they've somehow been fed. They've just had a great experience. And that's where social media comes in. And that's what all of us in the industry are all about. We want people to start texting their friends before they leave the theater saying, you've got to see this movie and I'll take you. I don't mind seeing it again. I'll see it 2 or 3 times.
Hey, John,
Anyway.
if I might jump in for a second, there was a question
Yeah.
that somebody had, and you were
Oh.
answering it. I just want to make sure that they're satisfied with that. The answer is, the question was, can you go through the accounting of 2 million and when and on what and where is it being spent? So just a little more specific, the first $500,000 of the 2 million is for a script writer, and then we're paying them to write the script during the 18-month process of development. That, of course, as I said, the 500,000, it's a floating number depending on who the script writer is. Then the another roughly $1 million, 1.2 is for attachment fees for the A-list director and A-list talent. And this is paid to them once there's a contract so it remains in our account until we actually have those people on board. And that's usually not until the scripting is nearly done. Am I right, John, about that?
Yeah, that's correct. And even the screenwriter, you might, if you know much about the business, you might say, well, best screenwriters are usually over $1 million. And it's true for us as well. This $500,000, $600,000 during development is augmented by money that's paid when production begins. It's part of the screenwriting contract that we sign with them at the very beginning. A portion of it's paid during development, and then a portion of it, often the bigger portion of it, is paid during production. But yeah, that's when, and that's basically how much. Most of the $2 million, about $1.7 million, $1.8 million.
So one of the things I think might be instructive and not to be negative, but clear, is that what could get into the way of the 100% plus 10% back? What would have to happen that would not cause that to happen for an investor?
Yeah, the thing that would be the most likely thing to have happen is that the script wouldn't be there. It wouldn't get fully baked. It wouldn't be to the level that it needs to be in order to have the presence, and so it wouldn't pass a studio review. And we've left enough time, but sometimes, frankly, scripts are developed for 3 years, 4 years, even though we try and get them out between 17 and 22 months. They could go longer. And if that's the case, then they just have to keep writing. And so we write on those scripts. And that would be the biggest thing. It wouldn't be a director, because if you can't get one, you can get another. And they're around, they're guns for hire. But if they make a decision, not just based on how much money they get paid, but their quote, what they make picture to picture, is based on how well the picture does in the marketplace. So they look at the script, and they know, experienced directors know, in fact, is this really strong? Is it ready to be produced? Will it be for big global audiences, which now are about 2.4 billion globally? Will this in fact move into that global marketplace and have the kind of earnings and the reach that it should have?
John,
Well,
if I could jump in. What was that?
I was just saying experience. They know what they're doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
In other words, if the script is in good order. Yeah.
Stephen, could you just touch on maybe a quick little update, since you've been doing all our updates on WeFunder, on the writer? Because it's really important that we have a writer who's at that level as well.
So the first writer we ever approached was actually the Russos, who did Endgame, the Avengers Endgame, and their whole team read the stories, and they got on a conference call with us afterwards. They called us a meeting with us afterwards to because they were just thought the story was just white hot. And ultimately, because of schedule conflicts and whatnot, they ended up having to sadly turn us down. But we've had such great reviews from them, as well as Lieta Kalogridis, who wrote Alita Battle Angel. These are top level writers that just think the story is outstanding. The trouble in the industry right now is there's 170 productions happening simultaneously right now. And there's usually about 40, 50, something like that. So the industry is
Thank you,
saturated. What's that, Jay?
Thank you, COVID.
Yeah, COVID did that. So there's so many productions happening simultaneously. So the issue isn't are we going to get a writer? It's just when are we going to get the writer of this caliber? We've kind of mitigated that issue by we've gone to an agent in the UK who has connections with a lot of talent, and so we're going out to about 8 to 10 writers at the exact same time right now, instead of one by one. We were giving them exclusives as a courtesy to say, hey, we'll let you read the story. We'll only go to you. That way is not to offend, them as a writer. So we're going out to about 10 writers right now, all of them A-list. Our list is fairly long that we have writers right now. So
importantly, we're not going out to them with offers because we can't, frankly, but she's taking them out, which is really smart move, a really smart strategy. She's going out just to see if they're available. And we can do that. We can go out to multiple writers. And so if they're available, then we're going back to the ones that we have as the top writers first with offers. Yeah. And
Jay mentioned COVID. I'm sorry, go ahead, John.
No, go ahead.
Jay mentioned COVID, and that I forgot that was one of the questions we've been asked quite a bit is, what about COVID environment? Theaters are closed and we have contingencies for all that. Disney is the best example because they released Mulan right in the middle of COVID, and they didn't go to the theaters. They went direct to streaming. So they thought they'd try, hey, $29.99 to watch the movie with your family. That probably costs less than going to the movies. How many people are going to do it? John, you got the numbers. How many millions of households downloaded Mulan or streamed Mulan?
Yeah, a bunch, enough in order to earn them opening weekend about 125 million.
Opening
which
weekend.
is just really extraordinary. To put it in context, if they were at the theaters, they would get less than half, because the theater keeps half, and then there's direct distribution expenses and other things. So this direct to consumer, they call it premium streaming, but it's very powerful for them. It comes direct to them. It grossed 125 million, and they got 125 million. It was so powerful. It reshaped literally Disney's distribution department. All at once, streaming became the lead, where theatrical had been the lead in distribution. Arthur mentioned the waterfall, and all at once, it's now streaming is kind of the lead, because
Super interesting. Yeah.
it's the biggest income delivering window.
Thomas just wrote that over 4 million people streamed it
Wow.
to get the 125 million.
Yeah.
That was in the opening weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, there are 120 million households in the country, about 350 million people or so in the US.
I
But
bought it.
yeah,
You did
there was a
too.
bunch. We did too. If you have kids, you probably did for
Yeah,
sure.
my granddaughter, right? Simple.
The global marketplace, though, is really crucial. And to be serious in the business, to put it in context, that part of it, the average motion picture makes about a third of their income from North America. So 2/3 of it comes from outside the country. And knowing that, all at once, you become, as a filmmaker, really focused on the other territories. Stephen mentioned that we go out and set the distribution focused on the nine biggest territories, which the French-speaking audience is France for sure, but there are 14 French-speaking nations as well. And it's like that for other territories. So, but looking at and China, frankly, is the largest entertainment earnings territory outside the US. And you might think, oh my gosh, but we have such a terrible relationship with them. Our motion pictures do huge business in China. Dune is a good example. I think their opening weekend was 40 million, which isn't overly much for China for a picture, but it's still real serious business. And they often will out earn North America with big studio pictures.
If I could interject without name dropping, we have already actually pitched and had a really strong reception to two of the major distribution companies over there, including the major one. So
yeah.
Can I bring you back to the numbers for 1 second before we move on? So I don't mean to focus on what can go wrong, but that helps clear the way to sort of green light an investment, if I can use your parlance. The 110% that gets back to the investor, is that from foreign rights sales and the financing of the $15 million of the movie? How does that happen?
Yeah, what a great question. So Stephen mentioned that it's coming from bank financing. Well, the banks don't take risks. So these licenses.
If you can borrow money from the bank, you don't, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Then there's no risk, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So we look at the collateral that's the least cost of money, and that's what we use. And some of them are pre-sold licenses. And some of them are production incentives. There are 9 different categories that we kind of move around until we get to the right mixture. And then we go out and subscribe those, back them into the bank financing. We actually set things up first with a bond company that guarantees the delivery of the picture for a certain price and based on the script and all of that, which is crucial in the bank. And the bank, the bond company actually puts together what's called an inter-party agreement that has each collateral player, and they package them in there because they perform against the bond company assures that the bank is going to be paid, and they give the deliverables to each collateral provider in order to bring about the bank payoff. And this is huge business for banks now. And JP Morgan Chase is the biggest in this business, but Union Bank and Comerica, and there are many banks that are involved in motion picture financing, but it's at this unique level. It's with producers that are sophisticated enough that they understand the bonding and the collateral that needs to be there. And during development, they set all these pieces up so that they'll be able to get the bank production funding. And then the risk is substantially mitigated for the investors. That's why we wanted them to play on that level. If we get the production financing because the investors have put up the development money, which is production money, that gets paid right off the top when the production bank loan is let.
Yeah, I think the difference is in normal waterfall that has been confused many of us, was that money didn't get paid till after the profits of the movie kicked in.
Yes.
And that you're allowing people to get back a pref basically on their capital.
Right.
Before the rest. And it's really interesting because the insurance companies are in the risk business, but they want a perfected interest in collateral. And then they provide a bond to a bank who doesn't want to take risk, and they'll give you low cost money. And then you just bake the cost of the bond in there. I mean, I'm just trying to follow the logic here, but that sounds like it's a doable deal, right?
Yeah, it is. The bond's about 2.5% now. It's competitive enough. So it's a part of the budget, but not a big part. But from an investor's perspective, everybody wants to play in the back end. Everybody hopes it's a hit, and they can get a nice return on their capital. But once you've had a return of capital plus a little vigorish, 110% return,
Feels pretty good.
You're no longer nervous.
Yeah, right.
You're no longer biting your nails, wondering if this picture is going to be strong enough to really merit a huge audience, a big income, that you can recover your funds plus a profit.
John,
You want to grab that? We talked a little bit about it. Do you see that Q&A there? From Kevin. Is the 110% returned when the Chase Bank or East West Bank loan is funded? Which we just went over, but I just wanted to make sure we.
Yeah, exactly right. That money comes off the top. It's the money that was spent first in order to produce the film. It was spent during development, and that's the money that is repaid. Just like handing in your expense sheet.
And I just put in the comments the fact that there was a video we did recently to explain this collateral breakdown, because so many people go, collateral, what are you talking about? How do you collateralize a movie that's never been shot yet? And so we did a very detailed video with a nice spreadsheet to explain the whole process. And I just put that in the comments so everybody can look at that and download it.
Yeah, we went through that in real detail, and the collateral, obviously there's risk for distributors if they take on a project and say they're going to release it in their market before it's even shot. Well, if you have a script that they can review, and you have a director that's studio level, that has a reputation for delivering pictures with good scripts that do well, then it reduces the risk considerably for the licensee. And these licensees then want to see on top of that, what's the advantage for us? And the advantage for them is that they get the license for substantially less than if they got it after the picture was done. So we license as few as possible. We set the North America distribution, and frankly, the theatrical distribution, we don't really get any capital from them for the production. We'll get a commitment to release in a certain minimum number of screens, usually 2,500 to 3,500 screens. And we'll get a commitment to them for brand money, for the media money that they will spend in branding the movie before it comes out, which is a crucial part of the whole process. And that's often $20 to $40 million. But it's not money we can spend on production. That's just,
totally makes sense.
but their commitment is crucial. Once we have a studio commitment, we take care of the question that every international distributor asks, which is when you sit down with them, the first thing they want to know is who's handling it in the US. And to be able to say it's Columbia, it's Sony, or it's Universal, or it's Paramount is just crucial. And of course, Disney. I mean, but each one of the studios, as long as it's a major distributor, and today, frankly, if you tell them that it's Amazon or it's Netflix, they also take that in stride because they're also big, huge players.
It's kind of like if profiling, right? So I'm going to be accused of profiling and it's going to be a matter of record. It's with the Chinese, for example, it's like owning a Gucci bag, right? So you've got the branding of a big studio. Totally makes sense.
Yeah, and the studios have made a science out of evaluating pictures. When they're before opening weekend, they're often within single-digit percentages of what opening weekend is going to be.
That's amazing. Hey, can I just jump in and say it's pretty cool, John? I don't know if you noticed, but Tori Kais, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. She designed the latest edition of your book. She's just saying hi.
Oh, hi. How you doing?
Your book is doing so well.
I'd like to jump in because somebody asked a question. What are the key assumptions in the green lighting process and what few things are most critical? So each film has something in the campaign of the film, the trailer that they show. The trailer isn't just like, hey, we do an artistic rendition of the trailer and this is to get people in. It's an actual calculated thing. It's called a campaign signature, and it shows how much of these particular elements are in a story, how much action, how much romance, how much humor. What's that, John? Drama, yeah, dramatic tension. And so when a movie makes a trailer, if they do it properly, this is called a campaign signature. And it's because they're studying people and what they want to see. And so we study the campaign signature of many other films that are very similar to our campaign signature. So our story has X amount of drama. What's that, Jason?
Dozens of films. So our film, or our story, the novel, has X amount of drama, X amount of suspense, X amount of romance, X amount of humor. And through that, we can create a campaign signature. We compare our campaign signature to dozens of motion pictures in recent history to calculate what those films in particular. We don't compare them to the whole picture, but to
their campaigns, to see what those films have generated in income. And this is a process that's been used for decades. John, who was the one who pioneered this method?
Barry Reardon at Warner Brothers, one of the longest running studio presidents in history. He made a science out of it, and it's been improved over the years. It was just at Warner Brothers for a while, and then it, as execs moved from studio to studio, so did this science, and they've just made it better over the years. But it is just what Stephen was saying, this ability to have comparative pictures to your picture. And it's the campaign signature, but it's also the level of proficiency of the director. It's the cast. If it's had a novel that it's based on, that makes a difference. Harry Potter would be a great example of that, but lots of other ones, including what's the picture we often compare our picture to?
Divergent, Hunger Games.
Yeah, those, to have a novel, a strong novel that's out in advance is a huge advantage. And the same thing with writing the script. Having a really strong novel, especially if it's as cinematic as calculated, is really beneficial also.
This has been super. We could probably talk forever about this, and I've super enjoyed it. I've got a hard stop here, so I'm gonna have to wrap things up. But and you're welcome, Michael. By the way, that's just a side note. This has been super interesting, and for someone that's a cynic, I'm now optimistic, which doesn't mean anything. It's just me. But I want to thank you guys for doing this. You want to wrap up? Somebody want to make a closing statement?
I want to say one thing, because I'm seeing a lot of questions that weren't answered, especially Benjamin Charbet. Very good questions. Sorry we didn't get to them. Just email us at you could do j@onedoorstudios.com.
Jay.
or info@onedoorstudios.com.
Yeah, we're going to make sure you have everybody's information so you can connect directly with the folks here. And we can do this again if you guys want, because it's been, it's a short period of time, and it's really, really cool stuff, and the community appreciated it. And thank you for inviting all your friends.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Just if we could do a quick summary, Arthur, it
Sure.
would be this, that it's a really extraordinary story. And from an investor perspective, there are very few things that we can be involved in that has a reach like 2.5 billion. And by the time this picture is out, these new satellite constellations that are being launched in 2022 will double the reach, almost. So it goes from 2.4 billion to about 4.6 billion all at once that are reached with this stature of entertainment. So it's amazing that you can be involved in something that you've made happen that has that kind of reach, that really is great entertainment, but also has something to say. And it's just, and there are very few investments in the entertainment industry that will recover your money before the picture goes into production. So, you can't do that really if this was production funding, which we don't get from private investors, but if it was, we couldn't make that offer, but we can do it in development.
Yeah.
So we'd
Super.
love to have you involved. We're almost sold out, which is really awesome. We've been really blessed in that regard, but we'd love to have you involved. If you'd care to join us, you can go on the WeFunder page, look for Calculated, and you can do it through there or contact us, and we'd be happy to facilitate and help out.
And just so you're aware, we are going to follow this up if it does close before you get in with other investments.
Yeah, we have a big reggae investment coming out in mid-January, which is, anyway.
Great.
Stay
So
tuned.
thank you all for being here. And
Thank you, Arthur.
As I mentioned, for the folks that attended, if there's anybody that of that might want to be exposed to this, feel free to do that. Or Family Office Insights is not standing in the way in that, nor do we want to be in any way an impairment, but a catalyst. So I once again thank you all for sharing with us the only thing you can't make more of, and that's your time. Till next time. Thank you.
Sure.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Arthur.
You're
Thanks a
welcome.
lot.